I am Claire. I was born in a well-equipped, clean hospital with highly trained staff in England. I was born to parents who had enough money coming in to feed me, buy me warm clothes, and put a roof over my head. I went to a good school, which cost me nothing, and studied to get my qualifications. This meant I could get a job which helped me to use my skills and gifts to help other people. I live in a secure house, have access to lots of help if I need it, and have lots of supportive family and friends around me. I am safe and enjoy trying new things and making the most of life. Let me tell you the story of Anya. Anya was born in a cramped house in a shanty town on the outskirts of Manila in the Philippines. Anya is the eldest of 6 children, so she couldn't go to school as her mum died when her youngest brother was born, so she had to look after the younger children. Anya was happy to meet her husband and they got married. Anya is pregnant and looking forward to the arrival of her first child. Her husband works on a farm but doesn't get paid enough, so Anya has to go out onto Smoky Mountain, a massive rubbish dump in Manila, to collect any useful items. It is making Anya ill and tired, but it is her only option to survive. It's 10 years since I spent 6 weeks at the Salvation Army's Anti-Child Trafficking Rehabilitation Centre in Malawi. On my visit, I took a photo of 2 young lads climbing up a rather rickety ladder to retrieve their rag football from the top of one of the buildings. On this trip, I was confronted with the stark reality of injustice. But the simple image of the ladder made me think too. If we imagine that the top of the ladder is the goal of all humanity, whether that be happiness, security, or fulfillment, are we all born standing on the same rung of the ladder? Anya and I both came into the world into very different circumstances. We did not choose which country we would be born in or who our parents would be. Anya and I both desire happiness, security, and fulfillment. But for Anya, perhaps those barriers are higher, the steps are bigger. Justice is about lowering those barriers, reducing those steps. Justice is about making things right. Justice is about bringing the ways of heaven to earth. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. That's what we read in John 10, verse 10. If Jesus came to give us life in all its fullness, why are there children who cannot go to school to learn and have their eyes opened? Why are there mums who die in childbirth because there is no midwife to come and be with them? Why are there dads who work 16-hour days harvesting crops only to still not have enough money to feed their family? Yeah, if there weren't enough resources in the world to distribute among the world's population, then perhaps we could hide from the truth. But there is. We just need to open our eyes. I came upon some challenging words which say, "Sometimes I want to ask God why he allows poverty, famine, and injustice in the world when he could do something about it. But I'm afraid he might just ask me the same question." Let's be honest. Who has ever cheated at a game? Maybe hidden a card, moved a few extra spaces, swapped around the Scrabble tiles. And did the truth ever come out? What happened? In reality, in an unjust world, people are cheating. People who have more cards than they should, or have jumped ahead, crushing people on the way. When someone is cheating in a game and the truth is out, Neither the cheater or the cheatee are joyful. The cheatee may lose knowing that they could have won. And the cheater doesn't have the full joy of winning because they know it wasn't done fairly. Injustice is a joy robber. Justice is a joy bringer. Proverbs 21 verse 15 says, "When justice is done, it brings joy to the righteous, but terror to evildoers." If we pursue justice, we bring joy and terror. Joy to the seekers of good and terror to the seekers of evil. And through God's strength, that is our calling. Not the calling of a specific few, but to all followers. Justice is a non-negotiable of the Christian life. The prophets Amos and Micah tell us what God desires from and for his people. It is not religious festivals, burnt offerings, or even sung worship that God asks of us. But instead, he says, "Let justice roll," and calls us to act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with our God. From the start of creation, the Bible makes it clear that all people were made in God's image. Throughout Scripture, we see how the ways of God are just. They are fair. We were created to bear the image of a God who is just and is righteous. Our whole world thrives when people are treated with love and compassion. This is about the big issues in our world and the small, seemingly insignificant choices we all make every day. Do we treat people as though they were made in the image of God? In the Lord's Prayer, we say, "Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." As we utter those words, we are declaring that we will live lives which bring heaven to earth. When our lives damage another person's body or heart or mind, to pray "Your kingdom come" is simply hypocritical. When our lives uplift, release and free other people, then we truly are echoing God's heart. It is said, when you have more than you need, build a longer table, not a higher fence. Our news headlines in these days seem to so strongly be rejecting these ideas, and instead we see people actively seeking to perpetuate injustice. But as individuals and a church, if we actually want to follow after Christ, if we actually want to seek after the Father's heart, we must build that longer table. Matthew 25 verse 45 says this, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me." It's as simple as that. We can't keep fitting in with the world's grab and get attitude. We have to do justly. We have to buy fair trade products. We have to be lobbying MPs to vote for policies which speak up for the vulnerable. We have to speak to our neighbours, finding out the local injustices and acting to make a difference. Our world will only know joy if they know justice. Our world needs Jesus. Jesus, justice and joy. The great American civil rights leader Martin Luther King was a person with tremendous courage. He endured vilification, beatings, imprisonments and death threats. His house was firebombed and eventually he was assassinated. So what kept him going? It was his strong sense of God's call upon his life. King was just 26 years old when he was appointed leader of the civil rights campaign in Montgomery, Alabama. Apart from terrifying threats from the Ku Klux Klan, King was harassed by police. Arrested for driving 5 miles per hour over the speed limit, he was given his first stint in jail. The night after his release, he was at home when the phone rang. A menacing voice on the other end shouted, "We are tired of you and your mess now. And if you aren't out of this town in 3 days, we're going to blow your brains out and blow up your house." King was unnerved and very afraid. For himself, for his wife, and for his little children. Shortly after the phone call, he sat at his kitchen table drinking a cup of coffee. "And I sat at that table," he said, "thinking about my little girl, and thinking about the fact that she could be taken away from me at any minute. And I started thinking about a dedicated, devoted, and loyal wife who was over there asleep. And I got to the point where I couldn't take it anymore. I was weak. And I discovered then that religion had to become real to me, and I had to know God for myself. And I bowed down over that cup of coffee. I will never forget it. I said, 'Lord, I'm down here trying to do what's right. I think I'm right. I think the cause we represent is right. But Lord, I must confess that I'm weak now. I'm faltering. I'm losing my courage.' It seemed to me at that moment that I could hear an inner voice saying to me, 'Martin Luther, stand up for righteousness. Stand up for justice. Stand up for truth. And lo, I will be with you, even until the end of the world.' I heard the voice of Jesus saying still to fight on. He promised never to leave me, never to leave me alone. No, never alone. And today, that call for us is the same, right where we are. Salvation Army, church, disciples of Christ, stand up for righteousness. Stand up for justice. Stand up for truth. And lo, I will be with you, even until the end of the world. Fight on. I will never leave you alone. No, never alone. God bless you.